We do have a quorum from what I understand. Jared, if you'd like to go through and read people's names out and we can ask them to come online and introduce themselves.
I'll be happy to. So just going in alphabetical order as it appears on my screen, we'll start with Abba.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Abba Dveberi from City of Fountain.
Thank you. Benjamin.
This is Ben Schmidt from City Woodland Park.
Thank you. Allison Burns.
Hello, Allison Burns, grant analyst with MMT, standing in for Lan.
Thank you. Aaron Busto.
Hello, this is Aaron Busto with Federal Highways.
Thank you. Darren Horstmeyer.
Hi there, Darren Horstmeyer, community planner at Schriever Space for Space.
Thank you. Don Collins.
Hello, this is Don Collins. I'm the town administrator for the town of Palmer Lake.
Thank you. Jeff Guthrie.
Hey, finally, I got my camera. Jeff Guthrie, CDOT Region 2 planner.
Thank you. John Hall.
Yeah, John Hall with CDOT as well, North Program Engineer. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Collins.
Kathleen Collins, CDOT HQ, statewide and regional.
Thank you. Lachelle Davis.
Hello, Lachelle Davis, CDOT Region 2 Local Agency Program Manager.
Thank you. Ryan Phipps.
Ryan Phipps, City of Colorado Springs.
Rob Fry.
Yep, Rob Fry, CDOT Environmental Manager.
All righty. Madam, I can go through staff who are online if you'd PPACG staff who are online if you'd like me to.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. Starting first with Casey Fortman.
Hi, all. Casey Fortman, PPACG.
Thank you. Danelle Miller.
Good afternoon, Danelle Miller, PPACG.
Thank you. Jason O'Brien.
Jason O'Brien, Transportation Planner.
Thank you. Jessica Bechtel.
Good afternoon, Jessica Bechtel, PPACG.
Thank you. Jesse Theron.
Hi, Jessica Therian, PPACG.
And last but certainly not least, John Sados. Oh no, John, and then we could do have one more after that. So John is online. He's transportation director at PPACG, and then Will Mast.
Hello, Will Mast, GIS admin and modeling lead, PPACG.
And then myself, public information officer at PCG, and Madam Chair, I believe that catches everyone.
All right, and I'm Victoria Chavez, El Paso County. So I'm sure everybody has had a chance to review the agenda. Slide down a little bit for me. I'd appreciate that. Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Allison with MMT. I motion to approve.
Thank you.
Ben
And a
Schmidt,
second?
the City of Woodland Parks. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Ben. Gotcha. All right, do we have any public comments today?
Madam Chair, none were requested ahead of time. We do have some people who are not members who are online. If you can use the raise hand function, let us know if you'd like to make a public comment. Otherwise, while we're letting people find that function, we did not receive any advance requests. We did not receive any written public comment that we would have distributed to the committee in advance. And I see no hands going on online, so I believe you can move forward at your discretion.
Very good. I'm sure that everybody has had the chance to review the meeting minutes from May 16th. And if there are any comments or changes, please chime in now. Otherwise, I will take a motion.
This is Dawn
All right.
Collins with the town of Palmer Lake. I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Don. I'm going to start calling you. Don't chime in. And a second, please.
This is Allison again. I'll second.
Thank you, Allison. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, that is approved unanimously. And our next item is the Board of Directors report. Is that John? Or maybe Danelle?
I don't hear John, so I'm going to speak up and John can correct me if there's anything I'm missing. It was a light board meeting from the transportation perspective. We had some financial reports. There were a couple of TAC appointments or adjustments that were approved by our board this month. And other than that, we did have the Transit 101 workshop after our official board meeting, and that was very well received. And we're very thankful to MMT and also to Laura from our staff for putting that on for our board members. Happy to answer any questions, but like I said, not much in the way of transportation this month.
All of that with my mic off. I am sorry. Thank you, Danelle. I'll take it over to Will Mast for Traffic Data Services.
Hello, this is Will with PPACG. Following up on the information item that we brought before the TAC last month, we had El Paso County and Colorado Springs both expressed interest in continuing to provide local match to secure a regional traffic data service. So this month we are coming back to TAC to ask for a motion to approve this service. If it's approved, we will take it to the CAC and then to the Board of Directors. And once it's gone through that process, we will issue an RFP. We'll reach back out to El Paso County and Colorado Springs to see if they've got staff that would be interested in sitting on the selection committee. Any other jurisdictions within the region that are interested in being on the selection committee, please feel free to reach out. The more the merrier. So that's it. We're looking for approval to move forward. The RFP will be issued with the similar terms that we had established previously. So that's going to be a contract up to $290,000 annually. That would be the local match of $49,909, which right now would be split between El Paso County and City of Colorado Springs, unless somebody else wants to contribute local match. We had 4 vendors respond last time. We've had a couple of other new vendors come into the marketplace trying to provide traffic services. We're expecting at least 4, if not more, for this RFP. But no matter what, again, 290 is going to be the cap on the contract amount. We will be pursuing with the option to renew for up to 2 additional years. So a contract for up to 3 years is how we're going to issue that. Are there any questions on this? Great.
All right, hearing no questions, I will accept a motion to approve.
This is Ava. I move the motion to approval.
Thank you, Ava. And a second.
This is Dawn Collins with the Town of Palmer Lake. I'm happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Dawn. All right, I'm just going to do opposing and assuming everybody else is okay. Do I have anybody opposing this motion? Wonderful, hearing none. We will take that as unanimous. Thank you, Will.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yay! Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
All right, looks like we're turning this over to Jason for an update on our active transportation plan. Jason.
Hi, thank you. Making sure I can share my camera here. Well, good afternoon. I'm just going to talk real quick for a minute before I turn you over to our consultant who's got the real substance. I'm just going to get us grounded in some process again real quick because it's been a little bit. Our active transportation plan, we started last winter. It's one of the component plans for our long-range transportation plan. We did an early check-in this March 2024 with TAC for some direction. We conducted a TAC workshop in April. So thank you to those who were able to attend that workshop. We got some really good input. At this point, we've done an early round of public outreach, a lot of stakeholder process, including with many of the folks on this meeting. So appreciate your time and interest. And now we have some draft products to review. After today, we'll have one, possibly two more check-ins with the TAC to clean up any kind of outstanding issues that we may need to clean up. We're looking to release for public comment sometime in July, I believe. And we hope to ask for your formal recommendation of the active transportation plan, most likely in September, and looking for adoption in October if things stay on track. And this timeline is really about staying in step with our 2050 LRTP. Like I said, this is one of the feeder plans that informs that. So if there's no questions about where we are in the committee process or the overall project calendar, then I can turn it over to Kyle, who's our technical leader on our great Olson consultant team leading the ATP.
All right, thanks, Jason. Can everybody hear me? I've been having lots of gremlins lately. Okay, good news. Let me share my screen, and everybody should be seeing just a PowerPoint outline. Perfect. Okay, so thanks, Jason, for kind of the overview. Again, I'm just going to quickly talk about the things that we've heard and kind of how we got to this point a little bit more in depth, and then really dive into the draft materials and a couple of different topics about kind of after we set these draft materials and how we want to kind of articulate our ambitions in the plan. So starting out, we received a decent amount of public input. We wish we would have had a little bit more, but we had over 400 responses. We had 2 different surveys, including the Area Agency on Aging, and then we also did have a component as well, which received a good number of input. For the survey, we had. I wanted to point out that most of the respondents, 92%, said that they drive at least weekly. So it was definitely not a skewed in only people using active transportation as respondents. A couple of highlights there were that lack of continuous or discontinuous sidewalks and speed of vehicles and inattentive drivers were the top safety concerns. I thought that was very, very telling. Crime was the lowest reported concern for trails and active transportation. And then medical facilities, government buildings, and entertainment venues were stated as the most difficult to reach by walking, biking, or mobility device. So all that was very much in line with kind of as we expected, and good to hear that the community is being represented well by the TAC and CAC. So turning to the spatial comments, I don't think we've shown really any of this yet, but I did want to show this as a teaser to the draft corridors. We had close to 900 close to 800 responses, individual mapped comments, strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. And I have a map here of the opportunities mapped over top of a buffered layer of our draft corridors. And really the purpose of this is to show that when we were drafting those corridors, we were able to capture many, almost all of the opportunities. And same thing with strengths and weaknesses. Many of those comments are within a short distance of a proposed regional corridor. So really just kind of highlighting that we're being sensitive to the survey comments and input, and each one of these little comments has an individual statement, right? So whether somebody said this is a great spot for a pedestrian crossing, or this would be an excellent spot for a grade separated crossing, all of those and anything in between are all mapped, and we'll have an output for that, but it's a lot to go through, so I won't bother you with it. And then kind of turning eyes to the TAC workshop. So again, thank you to many of you who participated in that. We really asked some of the key and core questions for drafting these corridors. we asked questions related to the characteristics, what is important for a regional corridor, this little graphic here on the bottom right, overwhelmingly, four different people had said that the type of facility is very important. Connection to other modes was very important, and then safe alternatives was also very important. So we asked a couple questions related to, can this project propose connections that maybe wouldn't have otherwise or historically have not been shown. And we received a lot of feedback from participants that, yeah, some of our plans are 5-10 years old, and we would like to kind of have an idea of what else we need to do moving forward when those individual municipalities start to look to refresh their plans. So we took that into account. And then we also had questions about, what other strategies or actions or policies should this plan implement outside of physical projects being kind of recommended as a regionally significant project or corridor. Are there other pieces that we should be considering? So that was a very quick kind of overview. The other thing that we have done is, as Jason mentioned, we have reached out to several municipalities, just trying to get a gauge for this draft map and see if it is representative of what they'd like, and see if there's other corridors that they would prefer to see, based on political interests, based on feasibility, based on just things that they've talked about internally that haven't made their way to a plan, as I just mentioned. So are there other pieces or other corridors that we should be prioritizing as regionally significant than what we had previously? So we're getting some feedback, as well as that's some of the feedback we'd like for you to provide today and going forward. So without further ado, I'll kind of jump to the next image. While you're kind of squinting, I'm going to pull this map up in a different format. But one thing, you should have all gotten a couple of maps with your packet last week. And really, we want to just have the open conversation now about these corridors, about the drafted network, and give us your feedback. Is there certain corridors that are, we're really excited to have them on here? Are there certain corridors that should be changed? Is this spacing appropriate? Knowing we have a very large region, some of these corridors are a couple of miles apart, but is that appropriate? We don't want to show every corridor. We don't want to show the entire network, because not every project is of regional significance or of regional kind of connectivity, but we would love to hear a little bit of open discussion at this time from you all.
And then also just understanding that sometimes it's hard to make comments in real time. Certainly we like them and we welcome them, but if anybody wants a little more time to look this over and mull it, we comments you may have, just whether they're systemic or they're about individual connections. Kyle, did you want to say a few words about maybe what the standards were for this, the sort of more criteria, more or less, or what they're intended to do, or am I jumping ahead to topics you haven't gotten to yet?
It is definitely related to the topics kind of going forward, but we heard from the TAC that, like I said, having connectivity to other municipalities, between municipalities, was very important. Having some level of kind of minimum facility type, as I shown on that last slide. There was several green marks, which green was good or liked, that there was a facility type that should be kind of considered, and kind of the conversations that we have had with within ourselves, with PPCG, with the stakeholders, different municipalities, is things like it should our regional kind of network probably should not include single track trails, right? That's not necessarily something for the whole region, for visitors, all visitors. So, we took that into consideration for, okay, if there is an existing single track trail, is that something that they've already been identified for improvement? Is an existing on-street bike lane, which we again talked about in that TAC workshop, is there space for, or is there a desire for that to be a future separated facility? So kind of various topics and kind of what that minimum is, or what that desired aspirational cross-section is the next conversation. So I don't want to step ahead on that, but yeah, and we've also asked some municipalities specifically, are there some regional destinations that you feel should be included, should be gotten to by a regional emphasis network? One example is Town of Monument. It was interested in making this connection over to the regional destination, the regional recreation kind of site. So we agreed that there are a number of people looking to get over here, and it being of their priority, kind of fit many of the characteristics and criteria that we were using to identify these alignments. So we agreed that we would include it.
That's a good breakdown. I think from the silence, maybe we can trust that this is generally acceptable, and just let everybody know on the TAC that it's very much still open. We're definitely still taking any individual comments anybody may have. So if you want to circle back with us on this, there's something that is there that shouldn't be there, or needs to be there that you don't see, then please let us know within the next couple weeks.
Yep. And so this map in particular is different than some of the others that you've gotten. So this kind of took out all of the other line work. It no longer shows the existing and planned trails, but rather the individual corridors. If it's existing, it's shown as this dark purple. If it's some of it's existing and some of it's still planned, it's this dark purple dash. So I'll send this document out just because we wanted to let you have that first set of maps, so that we had heard feedback in the CAC that some of these we're not sure if they're existing trails, we're not sure if it's something planned. So that was why that map package was sent over to you. But I will immediately after this, I will send this to potentially Jared for him to send out. I think is that good? Or Jason, would you be the one that send it out? Anyways,
we'll work it out.
Yeah, we'll get it to you, just so that it's even simpler map, and you can provide your comments as well. So I might have a little awkward silence for another 10 or 20 seconds and see if anybody wants to come off mute and make comments. Otherwise I'll move on. I can drag it out much longer. It's much more fun. Okay. All right. So like Jason said, if you do have comments, we'd love for you to provide them. We want to try to wrap up this draft network by early next week, so that we can start going on producing the materials for the report. And I'll highlight that timeline here in a little bit. But if at all possible, you could get comments by the 25th, so next Tuesday, that would be fantastic. We will be obviously lenient, but for the purposes of keeping the ball rolling, that would be optimal. So, Dawn. Saw it just
Yes,
in
just a
time.
quick question. Yes, quick question. I'm just wondering if you could, you said you're going to distribute the new map or this map. Could you also have contact information along with that map? So if there are any comments, we've got some new folks. I just want to make sure that their eyes are on it and have some opportunity for input as well.
Yeah. Yep. We have contact information on it. Okay. Changing topics then. So as we mentioned, one of the things we want to consider is what is this cross section? What do we hope all of these network segments turn into? And it's really a question that we really kind of need your feedback on specifically, because there's a lot of different cross sections across different municipalities. And there's a lot of kind of variation on how pieces of cross sections are highlighted. So this first slide I have in here, the city of Fountain has a nice graphic in their plan and has the stated kind of minimum cross section of a 10-foot wide paved. I don't have that on here, but it is paved with a 20-foot offset from roadway. Colorado Springs has a tier 1, and I think that many of us believe that maybe this tier 1 is not quite appropriate. Maybe it's too lofty. So looking at the tier 2 for Colorado Springs urban trails is a 12-foot wide paved with a 2-foot mowed shoulders. So those are just 2 examples from the municipalities' cross sections, their own desired standards for trails in their municipalities. And then one more as well, looking at the county's perspective, they do not have paved as a part of their desired minimum, whereas it's an 8-foot crushed surface with a 2-foot mowed shoulder. So we want to get your feedback, where, if maybe in an amalgamation of all 3 of these or with other input, where would we like to see kind of all the trails, all the segments that we've drafted out? What would that cross section, what should it look like when it's all done?
So I have just a quick question. Are we not considering any on-street facilities?
Yeah, so we've kind of we heard that on street is potentially a temporary condition, but that the regionally significant, kind of looking out in the future, 20 years, that maybe should be a separated facility. So that was one of the comments that we had received in that TAC workshop. So and we've also kind of heard that something on street, while it makes a lot of sense in like Colorado Springs, do we want to say that on street is acceptable, kind of out in the county? Do we want to say that on street is acceptable making its way up to Woodland Park? So we want to have a kind of a set standard so that it's very easily recognizable. It's kind of continuous all across the region. So that's kind of some of the reasons why we're kind of looking away from on-street facilities.
Okay, well, just a note, you're going to miss a lot of El Paso County facilities if we're not looking at on-street multi-use shoulders on rural cross sections of roads. So right now we have a really nice, more than 4-foot wide shoulder on Bradley and Curtis that would take you all the way to Schriever via Enoch, which is certainly an important center. Darren, I'm sure, is nodding if we were allowed to see him, but we're not showing it as included because it's an on-street.
Correct. It's not to say that facility doesn't play an important role, right? Nothing about these maps discount the kind of viability and need for all of the rest of the network. But it's kind of, these are what we're defining as like the spines where all of the kind of individual municipality and jurisdiction networks can kind of branch off of, and these are maybe either to a higher level or to some kind of regionally standard expectation. So yeah, I mean, it's a great point. You know, the point you were talking about is down here, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I think it's a good question to pose to the group is, you know, is a 4-foot paved shoulder, you know, something that we want to say is regionally acceptable as regionally significant?
Yeah, I think that's part of what we heard is for these regionally important corridors that we wanted. There was an ambition to have some consistency, continuity, connectivity, and comfort. And to achieve all those things, we decided to focus this regional network on off-street facilities. Like Kyle said, it doesn't discount the important role that on-street facilities play. But again, this is talking about an aspirational objective for the region, not necessarily something that's, and Kyle will get to this in a minute, but talking about the time frame for that, I think might be illustrative.
And am I right, Kyle, that other facilities beyond what's shown in this priority corridor network will be shown and featured in the plan? They're just not on this particular network. Is that right?
Yeah, we're gonna have you know, it'll be mapped that kind of all the other planned and existing facilities across the region, you know, so that, you know, any person, any, you know, kind of constituent can look at it and say, oh, okay, here's that network that I know of. Here's this, you know, here's this single track trail, or here's this shoulder that I use. And, you know, maybe this is an opportunity to say, like, this is what it is now, and we would like it to be a separated facility in the future. A couple of examples there are, let me get my map back up. There are a couple of examples here where there's existing on-street, but there's potential for future separated facilities. And that's kind of where we're trying to make the distinction is, are there planned facilities or facilities that would like to be upgraded that could be also included in this and serve that kind of more comprehensive, more regional role?
Does that make sense to everybody? Is this acceptable where where the conversation's gone so far, or how do we feel?
And I was gonna say, Jason, we may need to go through the other topics so people kind of see how this all ties together with some of the things that the plan has to do in terms of prioritization or establishing regional priorities and talking about the time frame and all that. I think that might help.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So if nobody has, I mean, burning kind of desire to say, yep, it should be paved, or yep, it should be a minimum of 8 feet or anything, if nobody has kind of any of those comments, then I will move on to the time frame. And again, this is aspirational, but just we've got to set some goals, got to set some future desires. So assuming these corridors, kind of everybody starts to agree on them, assuming we've got some minimal level of, you know, kind of investment desired, then the couple of timeframes that we looked at are, you know, can we commit to within 5 years? We've done, you know, municipalities, you know, whether it's within within a master plan update or an individual bike plan or a trails plan or just, you know, specific project kind of discussions. Within 5 years, maybe we'll have some alignment in the planning realm. that, yep, this is acceptable, right? There's some places where these are just big fat lines on a map, and within the next 5 years, we'd love for those fat lines to become skinnier and more defined. And then maybe within 10 years, there's maybe right-of-way consideration or consolidation that now we've got right-of-way for all these corridors that we don't currently. Maybe there's just a goat path, that meets all these alignments. And then in 20 years, we've kind of upgraded everything. We've got that minimum cross section across the region. So, not to say that any of this is required. We're not saying that in 20 years, if you haven't built these, then you're going to lose something or you're going to have to do something else. This is kind of just a general agreement that this is something good for the region. We'd like to we'd like to do a handshake and say, we'll get to this. This is, somewhere in the ballpark of reasonable, that word. So, again, looking for any comments. If this is too quick, let me know. Let us know. If you think these should all be built in 5 years, fantastic, and let's get to work. But any comments?
You made a good point, Kyle, that this is not going to come back to haunt anybody as a funding requirement, or it's not going to, or a selection criteria or anything like that. It's purely visionary. So, feel free. It's aspirational, just a vision for where we'd like this to be and when.
Yep. I mean, we'll talk about this here in a second too. It's definitely possible that an individual municipality could say, we want to prioritize these corridors in our local plans. By all means, that'd be fantastic. If an outcome to this plan is that it's used to prioritize and help provide guidance for municipalities, that's definitely one of the goals is, for this plan is to help the communities. But maybe I'll take the silence as just to take the next step of one of the things that we kind of started out this plan with, the knowledge of there is a desire to identify regional priorities. CDOT wants to know, hey, what are the couple of things where we know in the future you're going to have some grant applications, or we know that in the future you're going to want to put some money to. So help us by identifying that so you can compete with the other regions that have made these kind of sole project or collection of project priorities. So taking this all the way back to the reason for this is to help municipalities by identifying priorities, self kind of imposed priorities, not regional kind of dictated priorities, but as the region, as individual municipalities look to do investments, go after grants, find other monies, follow through developments, these are things that we would like to see, right? That's what the generous or the general kind of statement of the plan is. So I guess Jason or Ted, any comment on that before I click to my next slide of thought?
Just do it.
Okay.
See what happens.
So again, all this network is things that we're saying we'd like to have built in 20 years, a collective agreement that, yep, we can do it. And maybe the first couple things off the board, if we, again, would love for the region to agree on some of this. Some of the thought is for our first couple of regional corridor priorities to be potentially the Sand Creek Regional Trail. And then I don't really have a name for this. I called it the U kind of the Ute Valley, Creek Walk, Pikes
Midland.
Peak, Midland Trail, to kind of US 24 corridor. So this kind of Smile U. We think that there's a lot of regional value in these couple of corridors, providing a really great backbone. If we can all say this is collectively where we'd like to start spending our efforts on going after additional funds. Again, this is not, we're not moving existing dollars to these projects, but these are two very kind of seemingly important regional corridors that we've heard a lot about.
So just to boil this down, I mean, part of what we're charged with is if a state or federal agency asked us what our regional priorities were, asked PPACG or this group what our regional priorities are, could we give them 2 priorities, such as these that we've identified here?
So I would always suggest more priorities than 2. I also think,
but don't that Vivian and I appreciate that. But if the question is what are your top 2 regional priorities? How do you respond to that?
well, why do we think that will be the question we get and not here are our top 5?
CDOT asked us for our top 2 to 3. And I will say, just to color that, technically the way these are broken down, this is about 7 projects. So we've got a Ute Valley, we've got a Creek Walk, we've got a Midland, we've got a corridor through downtown Colorado Springs, we've got Platte Avenue, we've got US 24 to the east, we have Sand Creek on the south. There's probably 5 or 6 projects in the Sand Creek Regional Trail on its own. So this is probably, these are just 2 corridors, but this is probably dozens and dozens of projects across the region.
Okay, well, if the question was 2 to 3, then I suggest we give them 3. And I also would suggest that we go back to the map that you sent out. You have some trails marked on here as complete that are not complete. And so the map that came with the agenda, that map is more accurate in my quick look at it than this one. Like up Eastonville, out Black Forest, those trails are not complete.
Appreciate that, Victoria. And if anybody else happens to notice something like that, please let us know. We've done our homework. We've done a ton of consultation and filtering through data, but there's probably going to be a couple things we don't catch. So we really appreciate to get those comments, especially within next week. So appreciate it.
Yeah, and 100% agreed. It's there's also a couple of these instances where it's close, or like these dashed purple is, there's a couple of segments because the developer built this little stretch or that little stretch, and then trying, at the 800 square mile level, trying to say each individual stretch on a map like this is kind of futile. So, but yeah, I definitely appreciate, and if there's corrections, absolutely send them over. I think Manitou and Fountain and a couple others have similar, other alignments that they are wanting and trying to get in our hands, just so that we can be as accurate as possible at this level.
And again, I may put this a little bit differently, but some of the conversations we've had with our funding partners, to answer the question of why we want to go through this brain damage, because none of us thought it was going to be the most fun to try to get to 1 or 2 top priority regional corridors, but it's just what some of our funding partners have told us, that if we can identify just a small number, just 2 or 3, that those projects will tend to do better in their funding prioritization processes. So we'd rather not do it, just honestly, because it's bound to be a little bit controversial, what we call our top priority regional corridors. But if that's sort of the cost of having projects that rise in those funding prioritization process, we think it's worth doing. And this is sort of an educated first guess, first blush at what those might be. And again, comments are very welcome. So hopefully that clarifies it a little bit. You're muted, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks. I was just saying, and this is not, not set in stone. Like this is literally a PowerPoint, drawn over that we just kind of took a stab at. So if you think, it should be, some other corridor somewhere else, let me get a draw. If you think that the Pikes Peak or the Pikes Peak Greenway, Santa Fe, if you think that further improvements on that are more important than kind of turning attention to something else, then let's talk about it. More than happy to hear comments and thoughts and everything.
Also, we don't really have a better group to ask about this in the region than the TAC. So we're going to consult with others, obviously, but we're kind of hoping to get some of our most important input from the TAC. And so I'll ask, if there's no comments now, what do you think, anybody on the line, what would be the best way to go about getting this? Would it be just come back to the TAC next month when folks have had more time to think about it? Or would it be to just send it out or sort of survey people? Any thoughts about the best way to get this feedback right now? Again, I know it can be tough to do in real time.
Dawn has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to add, I think it would be of benefit to basically receive all of the information, in various maps so that we can review it for any additional corrections, additions, comments, and then, give a timeline perhaps for that to be returned. And then it can just, be a last opportunity at a future meeting. I think it's a great plan.
else, I think that's a good suggestion. Also, just make sure you ask us 2 or 3 pointed questions. I mean, obviously, we're going to look for things that may not be completely correct, but then, are these the 2 right corridors? If there were one more, what would you suggest? That kind of thing. So people have, a single sort of focus for you, and we can all give you an answer to a single kind of question. So that would be great.
Very helpful suggestion. Thank you. We'll do that.
Good point, Victoria. Like I said, I don't think we're defending those 2 corridors. Because as Jason said, we knew this was going to might cause some consternation. We thought they were reasonable choices, but I guess we put them on there to illustrate the difficulty, while clarifying the fact that, yes, we still need to, it would be helpful for the region to be able to really narrow down what are those regional priorities. And the number needs to be, as Jason said, in the 2 or 3, not the 10.
And maybe just further, kind of facts or desires currently about the report. We don't necessarily plan on, putting all 60 or 70 of these corridors in a prioritized do 1 through, X. Where, the plan is to provide these maps with, some information and breakdowns of the corridor, and then for the municipalities and the agencies to kind of take that and do with it what they will, right? If they want to, again, use it in their own prioritization tools, if municipalities want to take it and say, look, this is where we're going to spend effort. If things change and these are no longer, next year it comes out that there's some other project that's more important. This is not the end for these corridors either. Even after the plan's adopted, things still move and shift, and investments come, and so it doesn't lock anybody into forever and always. So yeah, I suppose with that, not seeing anybody else come off of mute, I will kind of flip forward. As we mentioned, we would love to see any feedback on the overall corridors by early next week, because what we want to do is kind of start or kind of finalize a bunch of the analyses, kind of supporting and underneath all of those corridors. And so if we add more corridors later or whatnot, it's just a little bit of rework and extra time that well, obviously would prefer not to do. But the plan then is to produce a draft report, non-public draft report in July, where again you all will get it. There'll be a bunch of other things inside of it, outcomes of the TAC workshop, outcomes from those individual conversations we're having, things like wayfinding, not necessarily defining that everybody's going to do this, but highlighting opportunities and reasons for a consistent wayfinding on these corridors. Other forms of kind of knowledge bases, right? Is there a way for us as a region to say, other than counting off the number of miles that we're building, are there other ways for us to say we are improving overall regional connectivity, things like that? All those kind of things will be in the report for you to review. The current plan is for that to be done ahead of time, for you to provide feedback in the July TAC workshop meeting, and then us to take all your feedback and the CAC's feedback, finalize, make it look pretty. I apologize, that next one's not going to look pretty. It's not going to have all the infographics that we want to have at the end, but we'll take your feedback and build that kind of public facing, more final draft-esque version, provide that in late July, August timeframe, come back to you, as Jason said, one more time for maybe an informational discussion of, hey, I had a talk with my neighbor and they said this, and the public's kind of given these little bit of comments, and then we'll wrap up that 30-day review and come back to the TAC CAC and board in September, October for action and presumably adoption.
And we hope it'll be helpful. We haven't had a regional active transportation plan now in almost 10 years, and a lot has changed, a lot's happened. So we're hoping everyone finds it useful.
That's the end of my slides. So any other comments, anything that's kind of come across your brain over the past 10 or 15 minutes we've been talking? Okay.
All right, thank you for your presentation. I think on deck here for construction coordination.
Yep. Can you hear me? Good. All right. Well, I think I saw a nod. All right. So it had come up at I think the board meeting that I had missed, where there was a discussion from some of the board members of, hey, you have one jurisdiction doing something, and then another jurisdiction does something right down the road, and then before you know it, you have a hard time getting across town or getting from one place to another. The upshot of that was they're like, well, maybe we could just have the TAC sort of discuss it. I'm want to just sort of throw out and find out if you guys think that if this is a long-term problem. I think there is definitely a shortage of funds, and especially if the state of Colorado gets its way on the GHG, we will see a lot less construction happening around. But that being said, if you think it is something that we can address, what we did back in Arizona was we had a sort of a system whereby people could sort of input. It was a GIS-based application. They would put the project and the dates, and then so we could sort of start looking at that to see when things were going to happen in real time with the other projects, and see if we could anticipate when there would be difficulty sort of moving around. That being said, I don't think we ever actually got to full implementation, because one of the issues was, and I think you guys know this, and I would assume it's the same here in Colorado as it was in Arizona, was jurisdictions are only a very small part of road closures or road construction. You have the private sector contributing to it, and they wouldn't necessarily go into the database, although I think they need to get permits to close lanes. And you also have utilities and that sort of thing. So I think that's just a way of sort of seeding the conversation of, do you guys all within the TAC here think this is something you would be interested in having PPACG sort of tackle and look to see if there is some sort of GIS-based form that we could try to implement and hopefully get enough private sector support to make it useful? Or is it one of those things that, again, like I said, Arizona never made it because we just couldn't get all the players at the table to actually buy into the process and get the form filled out. And even then, you'd be like, oh, well, we're going to do this. And then we have a construction delay for one reason or another. And then even though you planned on having one project done and the other project before another project started, they ended up running into each other and it was nothing you could actually plan. So do you guys have any thoughts on this? Is this something that you want us to pick up and try to work out some solutions on coordinating construction projects to see if we can make people's commute easier? Or is it something that been there, done that, and is not something that you have a lot of hope for us to bark up this tree? Any thoughts? And I guess there are no thoughts. So, Danelle, did I sort of again, this was a board meeting that I had missed a while back, right? So did I did I frame the issue correctly?
You did. It was the May board meeting.
Yeah, I believe I was having they were removing my gallbladder. So, oh, it is. Who's the puppy, Victoria?
This is Loki. He likes to photobomb.
All right, Loki, what do you think? No. So if anybody has any thoughts on this, if I don't hear a sort of like, yeah, this is worth our time, I will sort of move back. But if you guys think it's worth our time, we can sort of move forward. But if I don't hear anything, I guess we'll probably look into it more, because again, that was a little bit of the direction from the board of directors, if I understood correctly, right, Danelle? So unless you guys give me some ammunition to sort of say why it wouldn't be a good idea, or why it wouldn't necessarily bear the fruit people think, then we'll continue to look into it to see what we can come up with. So any thoughts?
So, John, I will tell you, this is something that we looked at in the city of Indianapolis when I was at the Department of Public Works there, and we found it unbelievably difficult to try and put together for exactly the same reasons. And that was even just between you know, the city, which was sort of like the city of Colorado Springs, the big one, a couple very small incorporated areas, and then the state of Colorado. We couldn't even get the utilities to coordinate with us. You're right, private development has a role. You do have those construction delays. You know, it rains for a week and suddenly you're not hitting your schedule. So when I was in Indianapolis, it was incredibly difficult to try and put a plan together. Not
Yeah,
to say it
thanks.
isn't, you know, like would be really useful for the public. It's just really hard to do.
Yeah, that's one of those things is like, oh, this will be great. And they really came up with a really slick tool, but a tool's only as good as you can get people to use it and is only as accurate as the tool is. And there's just so much stuff that is beyond the control of the people inputting the data, right? Again, like you say, construction delays, especially here in Colorado with the snow and rain. I think we put in a lot of effort and spent a lot of time and money and cost thousands of lives. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be much use to anybody. And even then, even if you had a perfect tool, it would be up to the individuals before they left the house to check it, right?
From anybody else? Okay, if we have additional thoughts, I think we'll email them to you, John. How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Danelle, LRTP update.
Yes, thank you. We are obviously making a lot of progress here at the staff level, but on a status level, we're still kind of in the same place as last month. We are working on finishing up that travel demand model and the land use information to get it to the state for the greenhouse gas the greenhouse gas assessment. We are the public involvement assistance, the RAP PAC meetings are kind of on hold right now. What we would like to do with the next RAP PAC meeting is to make it kind of a preview of the public open houses. And so to do that, we need to be a little bit farther in the development of the document and have some of those materials ready so that can be more useful and a good use of the RAP PAC, the members' time as well. As I noted, we're kind of just working on putting together that document, putting together a lot of the text right now. A lot of the mapping is going on. A lot of the behind the scenes kind of analysis that needs to go into the LRTP. I did kind of skip over that unfunded project list. We did talk about that last month at the May PAC meeting. Right now, the only things that I'm looking for is if you're a jurisdiction that would like any additional projects to appear on that unfunded list, if you could get those to me, that would be great. And ideally with ROM costs, we're also looking for ROM costs for those Colorado Springs PPRTA 3B projects. And I'll send out some more information to everybody about that kind of as we move into the document a little bit more. Still hoping to adopt the final document, of course, in December or no later than January. But again, it does kind of depend on where that greenhouse gas evaluation comes in. I'm a little reluctant to kind of bring sections to the TAC piecemeal until we know where that kind of stands in case that makes any changes. But if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them. But that's kind of where we are as a status update.
Questions for Danelle? Okay, thank you, Danelle.
Thank you.
Jessica, are you doing tip updates?
Yeah, hi there. So Jess Bechtel, PPACG tip planner. No major updates for the tip right now. I am getting ready to do the roll forwards from 24 into 25 funds. So if you have any project changes in the tip, if you can send those my way, that would be really helpful. Also, if you receive any grant funding, things like that, that should be mentioned in the tip, make sure you let us know. We're going to start asking for those during the TAC each month, just so we can stay on top of some of that information. But outside of that, no other updates, and I'm here if you have any questions. Thanks.
Questions on the tip? All right, Sita, who's going to start that one?
I can start that one. This is Kathleen. We don't have a whole lot of updates. The Transportation Commission is meeting as we speak because of the holiday yesterday. They didn't have their workshops. And but they are going to have their, we anticipate they're going to discuss Policy Directive 14, which relates to statewide planning performance measures and objectives. They're going to talk about program distribution for sub-allocated formulas. They're also going to talk about the scope of the Bridge and Tunnel Enterprise. And then the Small Business and Diversity Committee is going to be meeting today. And then STAC for June, that occurred on June 6th. And we did meet in person, but it wasn't very well attended. So we are going to continue with just twice a year meeting in person, which is May and October. And we did discuss the 2050 statewide plan. Well, the Rural Planning Assistance Grant formula update was discussed. Multimodal Options Fund distributions and project selections were also discussed. And Region 3 gave a good project update. The next STAC meeting is July 11th. It's a week later than usual to accommodate the 4th of July holiday. And we are going to start talking to the rural TPRs about the regional transportation plan development. So I think that's all I have. I know some folks from Region 2 are on the line if you have anything to add.
Thank you, Kathleen. Who's next?
I'll jump in, and then I know John's got some stuff since we're talking planning. Yeah, so Central Front Range, which includes El Paso County, obviously the rural portions, we're kicking off our long range plan, like Kathleen said. So just make sure you're there. I believe it's July 8th up in Fairplay. That'll be really our kickoff for that, and hoping to get that done by, I believe the goal is August of next year. There's some slack time in there if we need it, but that's what we're shooting for. And then I'll mention it as well is part of our 4P process. We're doing our county meetings as well. We're trying to get those scheduled with I don't want to say individual counties. El Paso County we will do individually, and then the rest of the counties in the Central Front Range TPR, we will consolidate and do one meeting for that one as well. Those have yet to be scheduled, but I believe we're looking at getting those scheduled in August, September timeframes. So stay tuned on that. And then I think that's all I had on those two meetings. And then and Jeff, unless you have anything else, I'll just kick it over to John. I think, John, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to bring up the 10-year capital projects, funding them, getting like Powers and Airport awarded, obviously has created just, some discussions in the last few months in terms of funding. Try to be real pithy on this. The bottom line is there are 13 projects on PPACG's 10-year, priority list. 1, 2, and 3 are done. 4 and 5 are Fillmore to Garden of the Gods and Powers and Airport, which is also now, both of them in construction now. Powers and Airport just beginning. 6 and 7 are 24 East and 67 up in Woodland Park. 67 was advertised, but unsuccessfully this past year. And 8 and 9 in particular are kind of the next two that have funding in the TIP right now and the STIP. 24 West Ridge Road and 25 Circle to South Academy, safety and operational improvements. And just over the next few weeks, I'm going to be putting together a memo and looking to try to introduce it into the cycle there, starting with the TAC in July. And as far as participants and people I'd like to get involved in that memo, probably I'm going to try to draft it up in the next week or so and set a meeting up before the TAC meeting. And I intend to invite, in particular, Victoria, yourself, and for the city, I was anticipating Gail being the person I was going to invite. But if there's anybody, if y'all let me know now, or I'll reach out to you later, and I can find out. I think it's Ryan on the call, right? I can find out who the most appropriate people are. But basically, I just want to lay out a plan, which is mostly going to be to move projects from the lower on the list and move it up to higher on the list to try to fully fund 6 and 7 potentially. But just want to get consensus on that and try to get it into the plan. And like I say, it won't be a rush. We're not trying to get it approved necessarily, but certainly it might be nice to have 2 cycles and maybe get it approved by September, so we could potentially advertise, for example, 67 North if everything is looking good. I think that's is that Ryan with the screen?
I think we have Ben first with the question.
Oh, is it?
Hey, John, I think you may have answered the question. I was just going to ask when your target date was for advertising for that 67 job. So it sounds like October if everything goes right.
Yeah, to re-advertise it. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Please let us know any coordination efforts.
Thank you.
And then John, you had your hand up too?
Yes, thanks. So John, if I understand correctly, you're basically doing an update of the CDOT 10-year plan for the region. And if that is in fact the case, I need to ask, are we also going to be updating the PPACG transit list? Because at the last time we did the updated the 10-year list, they added a transit list as well. In fact, that's the one that had the most sort of interaction of our board. And it also sounds like, again, I have not been contacted by this, so I don't know who at the state is asking for the alternate mode projects or the bicycle projects, but it sounds like maybe there's another list of 2 or 3 10-year plan for bicycle projects as well. Again, that's unofficial. No one's reached out to me or told me anything about it. Again, this was something that Jason and the consultants have been doing. So, but anyway, what's the deal on the transit plan?
I am in no way, shape, or form trying to do anything that you just articulated, other than to simply take the funding in the plan right now and make sure we're all in agreement on kind of reallocating it up to the top priority projects, and if you will, lowering the funding on the lower projects that are already on the list until such time in a year. I think it's late next year, probably, right, Rob, that the 10-year plan would actually be updated, and hopefully we get more money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right, so
yeah. Another way to put it is just pushing those projects that are lower on the list out further, and then just taking that money that was presumed to be there in FY27 or whatever, moving it forward to these other ones. But still, there are no changes to the list, just delaying how fast they get out there because of the funding. And then, as John pointed out, we're going to get through our 2050 long range plan. We'll get that completed hopefully next summer. And then once that's done, we will start another effort of updating our 10-year plan and reprioritizing or making changes or keeping them there and just updating that. So this is just really just kind of, trying to find a way to keep those projects moving forward by delaying other projects on that list.
Okay,
so we're not to wait till next year, right?
Right, so
to
we're
make
going to
these
leave
decisions.
All right, so we're leaving the list alone, but rather rearranging the money on that list to make sure that the ones towards the top can get funded and moving. Especially, next time we do a 10-year list, I suspect it will look much differently after we get done doing all the modeling, but I could be wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong.
Yes, John. And then I think maybe Jeff may be able to, no, nothing on the transit stuff.
No, I was just you said it. This is the rob Peter to pay Paul exercise. Ha ha ha. This is not reprioritizing anything. And John Leosatos, I'll happily chat with you later on about answering any questions you have about transit specific stuff. But this is not at all looking. This was just John Hall, our North Program engineer, wanting to try to advance some projects and fund them right now.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I admit that I misunderstood. So this is not a starting of the 10-year process. Rather, it's just the robbing Peter to pay Paul on the existing list, not a new list. But that being said, I don't know if Scott maybe has seen I know he's relatively new, but I don't know if he's seen our 10-year transit list and if we've made progress on that. But that might be something he takes a peek at prior to next year, if in fact next year is when we're going to redo all of the 10-year CDOT project lists. Because again, it's anticipated we'll continue to have a transit list, so we'll need to revisit that. So maybe Scott with someone from MMT can chat through that, and then we'll see where we're at on the other list. And again, whether or not there's a separate bicycle list or now the transit list becomes a multimodal list, we'll cross that bridge next year, or other form of transportation that you want to use. See what I did there? Bridge? Never mind.
All right. Thank you all. And Danelle, I'm going to try and make this easy on you. You have a 4-page list there of a lot of funding opportunities. We appreciate you putting that together. I'm just going to ask if anybody has questions and kind of keep it short. So does anyone have questions on any of these funding opportunities? All right, hearing none, you're off the hook. Thank you, Danelle. We appreciate you doing them, though. Very handy. Member entity announcements. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say? We have a very quiet group today. All right, hearing none. Do we have any items for future TAC meetings, John, Danelle? Outside of our standing items?
I think aside from the other things that we discussed today, I can't really think of any. I know that the transit plan that Allison may discuss, or actually no, we just passed another announcements. The transit plan is on a similar time frame as the active transportation plan as far as public comments and things like that. But other than that, I don't think there's anything popping up that we need to warn you about.
Okay, very good. If there are no other questions, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you.
Appreciate you running the meeting.
No problem. Bye-bye.